So you're on YouTube, people are giving you the super chats, YouTube is paying you, and then also people are, direct messaging you saying, hey, can I have some private consultation? So that's kind of one of the simplest ways. I have so many people that have things that they went through in their lives. I tell them to write books. There have been people that have written books. There are people that are in the process of writing books. And people do read a lot, but it's not just about selling your book. It's about when you have a book, you're looked at as an expert. So then that gets you in the door to speaking engagements and other areas where you can offer packages.
Focus on hitting your goals in every area of your business. Remember, the universe rewards the bold. A leader has to take the risks.
Is that Dr. Sherry Peel Jackson? You're on mute, by the way.
Okay, there we go.
All right. Is that Dr. Sherry Peel Jackson? Is that her? Is this the one and only?
It is.
All right. Awesome. Well, I'm excited to have you. Where are you located, by the way?
I am in Stone Mountain, Georgia, which is about 15 miles east of downtown Atlanta.
Okay. Fantastic. I know Atlanta, Georgia very, very well.
Okay.
Actually, my company, my main hub company, the corporation is actually based out of Duluth, Georgia.
Right. I've passed it a couple of times.
Yeah, I've been there many, many times, done some shows out there and a lot of conventions. Actually, the Mercedes Dome,
yes.
The Mercedes Center is really beautiful. So that's it's a beautiful town. So, all right, former IRS agent. Is the IRS are they really a good organization, or are they just governmental overreach? What's your thoughts?
My name for the IRS is the insidious representatives of Satan. That should answer your question.
Wow. All right. We got to get into this. So what is that all about?
Well, think about it. You have money, your life resources are yours, and you should have the decision to help people or not help people, whatever. They're taking from you money that you could be using for your family, your parents, and doing things with it that we don't believe in. I didn't ask anybody to go blow up anybody to take their oil. I didn't ask you to give money to the National Endowment for the Arts to make that crazy stuff that they call art. And you're wasting my life force by taking my money.
So, if you go back in history, and I don't know, maybe you can educate us on this a little bit, but you go back in history, because I feel very similar to the way you feel, but I feel like America is here today because of a revolution. And that revolution was sparked by 1% tax on tea. So
Yes.
how did we go from 1% tax on tea to them taking half of my money?
Manipulation and complacency. Daniel, this is crazy. It's like we don't have any representation. They represent themselves and their handlers, which is those powers that be, most of who we don't know. So we've gotten to this point because we've been made busy. When you're busy working a job, trying to feed your family, when you're busy making sure that you don't get a pink slip, all that stuff, you don't have time to really pay attention. And that's what I see to what's really going on. You listen to the pundits, you get the misinformation, and then you go along with it and consider the authorities. Those of us like you and I, we don't just listen to the authorities. We do the research, and that's not what people do. They will sit and watch the electronic income reducer, which is the TV, but they won't do the research that is needed to find out what's going on and what you need to do for yourself and your family.
So a lot of people in the government right now, they're freaking out with this Doge thing, Department of Governmental Efficiency or something like that. And they just uncovered, and maybe you know a little bit about this, but they just uncovered that we were giving millions and millions of dollars for just crazy stuff. I mean, like a transgender dance show or something like that in Panama or in Cuba or something like that. I mean, what is going on?
Yeah, and millions of dollars to see how fast shrimp move on a treadmill. That's insulting to me that you spent money that from people that don't have money, people that are on Social Security, people that have special need. You took money and just plundered the United States. And it's been happening for decades, and it's time to stop. So I'm happy for any and all of the changes that take place with the Doge.
And so, you know, they're kind of freaking out right now because they're saying that there's potential that they're going to audit the IRS even. So what do you think is going to happen if they audit the IRS?
I think they know that it's totally inefficient. And being someone that was on the inside, I know that the IRS is always going after the low-hanging fruit. So the people that were getting audited were not the larger corporations that may be doing all kind of things that weren't correct. It's mom and pop. They love their business. They're proud of it. And some of them have even had their businesses closed down because it came up with some large number for them to pay. They weren't supposed to be auditing anybody that was 400K and below, but that's all they audited. Because when the IRS agents that are out there, now when I was there, they were hiring CPAs if they could and other people with a strong background. They don't have that anymore. So these young people with the slick hair and the high water pants come in, they're not going to be able to go up against these CPAs and attorneys that are hired by these larger corporations. They intimidate these young folks and the older ones that don't have the kind of education. So they just revert back to bothering mom and pop. And that's a shame.
It's just because they are, it's just, they feel like they can intimidate mom and pop because mom and pop have no idea. They don't have high powered lawyers or anything like that. So it's easier for these uneducated IRS agents to come in and say, hey, we're going to bully you. They're easier to bully. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. I mean, the fear was put in them through propaganda, you know, that saying there's nothing sure in life but death and taxes. Well, there's not. There's so many of them and the higher ups that don't pay taxes. They know that's not true, but they make people fearful of the IRS. I had somebody that I was telling about the fact that the income tax has been misrepresented and misapplied to the American people. They said to me, and this is the consensus of a lot of people, I don't care what the law says. I care what the IRS can do to me. And, you know, we need to grow a couple. We used to have a backbone in this country, but we don't anymore. And until we grow a couple, then, you know, it's going to continue on.
And so do you think that the IRS could ever be dismantled? I mean, what do you think about that proposal from the president?
I have been preaching that whole scenario for years. And that's why I had my fight with the IRS, because again, we operated on impost, excise, duties, and tariffs for decades. And then the IRS came in undercover in the middle of the night on, you know, Christmas Eve. And so did the Federal Reserve. This whole story has it's a scam based on the power elite to take money from us. There was a Federal Reserve chairman named Beardsley Ruml, and I think it was 1936. He wrote a whole treatise and said that income tax for revenue is obsolete. It's a transfer of wealth. Everything that they do with us is a transfer of wealth. You know, in 2008, when the stock market went down 777.68 points in one day, and Americans lost $10 trillion in their savings, it didn't disappear. It was a transfer of wealth to the wealthy. And people just, you know, shrug their shoulders and keep going. And I can't get with that group. I've got to be with people who really understand what's going on and have the gumption to make sure that their family is okay. But not only that, they're educating others that are listening.
And so really it comes down to, I think, education, right? I mean, some of us, I don't know, I think I've done pretty well. I mean, you know, throughout all these years, I've done well financially, but I think where I really excelled was in the tax space. And of course, I'm always trying to learn. So I'm always trying to get better, but I always felt like it's just not right that they're taking so much money. So I looked for every legal loophole. I looked for every possible way to pay as little as I possibly could. But it was always very strange to me when I would see my maybe just friends in business or, you know, people, peers, and we would be out at a restaurant and we'd be paying for something. They'd pull out like a wad of cash, and then the lady would say, "Do you want a receipt?" And they're like, no big deal, and I'm over there, I'm got it on my credit card. I'm like, yes, I would like a receipt. And, I'm taking it, all these ways to eliminate tax, because I know now I'm going to write it off. That guy over there, he makes a couple $100,000 a year and he's not writing off anything. And whereas me, we might be making the same amount of money, but I'm taking write-off. So I'm paying way less in taxes. How important is it that people start getting educated about how this system works, at least until, God willing, one day they abolish the income tax. But at least at this point, we better get educated. How important is that?
I can't even describe how important it is, Daniel, because that's the key. When I tell people that have a W-2 job, you can't write off anything. Business owners can write off everything but the kitchen sink. And if you want to play within the system, that's what you want to do. You want to find out what you can write off. Your cell phone, you can't do that when you're working a job. Your internet, you can't do that when you're working a job. All of these things. And so for you not to know that, for you to pay in cash and not get a receipt at the restaurant, how many times are you eating out, especially with friends? All you got to do is say, I went out to eat with Daniel and we talked about taxes. Boom, that meal is deductible. And the mileage. People don't keep up with their mileage. And for every 2 miles you drive, that's $1 that you've thrown out the window. So if people don't get educated, they're going to continue to get crushed by the taxes.
And really, isn't the system kind of designed to confuse us? And I always tell people, because I'm in the insurance business and investment business, and so I always tell people, if the policy is confusing, it means they're stealing from you. I mean, you understand that. I mean, if you don't understand how your life insurance pays out, or how an investment is working with that insurance policy or whatever, you understand they're stealing from you. Is that kind of the way the IRS works?
No, it's not kinda. It's exactly how it works. I mean, how many pages of code are there? There's thousands and thousands of, and people can't read that. And it's like a dog chasing its tail. But when you take the time to try to go through it, you realize that there are certain taxes that are set in stone. That's excise taxes, but the income tax is not. There's no definition of income in the code, Daniel. None. So we've been lied to, we've been manipulated. And the biggest thing that keeps people there is fear. They do not want to lose their homes. They do not want to lose their jobs. It's fear. And this country is not going to survive with people that are going to grapple to the powers that be.
Okay, I got a little sidetrack question, because I live in California. What happens to all of these people that all of their tax documents were in those houses and they're all burned? Like, how do you do an audit now if all of that if these people do get audited, and obviously you have to keep your files for 7 years? What happens to these people if they get audited by the IRS?
Well, you have to keep them for 3 years. That's the statute of limitations. And
it's only 3 years then. Okay.
Right. It's only 3 years. Okay. Yeah. And unless the IRS thinks that you have underreported your income substantially, then they have 6 years. Okay. But what they would have to do is they would have to, and I don't think they would audit anybody, because that's foul play right there. But let's say, for the sake of argument, that somebody was already in the middle of an audit and this happened, then they would say, okay, well, we need to go back and figure out where we can get some records from. I like American Express. They keep records forever. So I pay most of my stuff with American Express. And of course, I get the Sky Miles. But if you go back to American Express, if you go back to Home Depot, if you work in construction, if you go back to these companies, they're going to have your information. And they might not have it all, but the IRS will accept what they have and say, okay, well, it's obvious that he's in construction. He has this account at Home Depot. They've given the record. So we got to accept whatever that is. And if your QuickBooks is or your whatever software you use for accounting, if you can still get into that, you do have your records as far as the numbers. You just don't have the receipts. So the receipts, you go back and try to get them. I had a client that, unfortunately, she got diagnosed with MS. And the day that she got home from that appointment, finding that out, there was an audit letter in her mail, and she called me crying. She's a business owner, and she was had originally contacted me so that I can educate her employees. So I helped her and her husband. They didn't have any records. They thought, and this is a fallacy, they thought that their debit card statements and their credit card statements could be used as documentation, and they cannot. They'll say, well, you could have bought anything from Staples or Walmart, so you can't use those. So I had her business dealt with a lot of equipment. I had her go back to all those companies, get all the receipts, and she ended up getting a refund from the IRS as opposed to having to pay anything. But that's not normal. A lot of people that have businesses, they don't have these larger companies to go back to and get this information. Now, companies have to keep your records for 3 years.
And so really a lot of these people that had all these documents, I mean, a lot of these people are going to be in trouble. And I think that, didn't they just push back for this year, like back till October now because of the fires and things like that? I mean, to help some people kind of put their whole lives back together.
Yeah, big help, huh? Yeah, they did push it back, but they just need to get rid of it. I mean, these people have nothing now. Do you expect them to be able to pay the ones that didn't have it already taken out of your W-2? For example, the business owners. Some business owners, they don't pay quarterly income taxes. They just wait till the end of the year because they don't want the IRS having their money interest-free all year. So they just wait till the end of the year. So in that case, they don't have records, they don't have anything, and they need further than October. I mean, this thing is huge. But again, that's just one of those things about the government where they feel like we should all be subjected to them.
So unconstitutional. People say things like, well, the IRS is it is unconstitutional for us to pay taxes at all, income taxes. What's the argument there? Like, what are these people really saying?
Okay, so there were several attempts prior to the one that passed to start an Internal Revenue Service and a Federal Reserve, and they failed. So they had to sneak and do it. There's a book out there called The Creature from Jekyll Island, and Ed Griffin is the one that wrote that book. He's out there in California also, basically saying that the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and the Warburgs all got on a train, the separate trains or separate cars at the same time, so the press wouldn't see what they were doing. They took a train down to Jekyll Island and they devised this whole plan and then voted on it in the middle of the night. And then they said, okay, well, you can't impose a tax on people in that way. It has to be apportioned by the states. So somebody came up with the 16th Amendment. The 16th Amendment was never properly ratified. There's a volume of books out there called The Law That Never Was. My late great friend Bill Benson went to every one of the 48 contiguous states that were around at that time and pulled the vote from the 16th Amendment. And there was no real ratification because the bill was changed. If you change the wording, then it's nullified. And there are certain other aspects of a bill that if you change it, it's nullified. And they did not have 2/3 vote on that, but they slid it on through. So it's like they're just doing what they want to do. And, it's going to come back to reckon, because people are at the point where they're tired of working so hard. This is our life force. This is all we have. Our brains, our arms, and our legs. And when I come to cut your grass, Daniel, and we agreed that you pay me $100 to cut your grass, I use my arms, my legs, my brain. I do a nice job. And you in exchange, give me $100 because I no longer have that time. I know, that brain energy. However, let's say the smallest Walmart in the country made, let's say $100,000 yesterday, but they have electricity, they have salaries, they have rent, they have to pay for all of that. And let's say their expenses were $70,000. They only pay tax on the $30,000. They don't pay tax on the $100,000 like we do. They pay tax on what's left over. That's the difference between having a business and then them taking your life force as an employee. And when people understand this, I have a little poster here and there's some slaves on it and they're picking cotton. And the caption is, if stealing 100% of the product of someone's labor is slavery, at what percentage is it not slavery? It doesn't matter whether you're black, blue, green, purple, polka dot, they are stealing our money. At what percentage is it not slavery when they're taking 55%? And if you look at it between the income tax from the federal, the state, there's the sales tax, there's the death tax, there's all these taxes in your phone bill. They are taking 55% of our life force away from us. And that is so fundamentally wrong on so many different levels and that's, my fight against the IRS was about not just the fact that I believe that it's not constitutional or legal, but it's very immoral.
So let's talk solution now. Okay. So, I'm a business owner. Let's just say, making $250,000 a year, giving away half of my money because I just kind of don't know what I'm doing. What are some of the things that they should do? I mean, give me like the top 3 things that you think that they need to make sure that they do like before today is over.
They need to go and figure out if they want to stay within the system. We're going to talk about the ones who want to stay within the system. They want to continue to file tax returns. There are others out there that have come up with other remedies. I can't, vouch for all of them. I know that the wealthy people use trust, and all the trust, when you equity cascade, in which you transfer money from trust to trust and foundations, that's where you have the least amount of tax. But those vehicles are sometimes very expensive because the people that know how to put them together want to make sure that, those of us peon people don't get to that. Those are the best ways, find out. When I was an IRS agent, I got assigned to a little project at a different building where I was looking at returns that were over $1 million. And I was out there 2 or 3 weeks. Every single one of them had blind trust on there. Every single one of them had these deductions on there where they had $1 million deduction that was there for a window and then taken away. You could take $1 million deduction if you got one of those plans to take care of you when you were older. And then it was there and you took the deduction and then they took it away. So knowing what the wealthy do is paramount to making sure that you don't pay. Now, when you're in the system and you have a W-2 job, there's not much you can do. You don't have many deductions. They give you the standard deduction. You might qualify for the itemized deduction and you may not. But when you have a business, Internal Revenue Code Section 162 says you can write off all ordinary and necessary business expenses. Well, what is ordinary and necessary? Give you an example. Back in 1994, there was a tax court case. And in that case, there was a woman named Cindy Hess. And on her tax return, she was being audited. She wrote off a breast enlargement. And the IRS just had so much fun with that. They laughed and laughed until they just fell up under the table. So Cindy was adamant about taking her deduction for her breast enlargement, and she got a tax attorney. They went to tax court, and Cindy won. She won the right to take the deduction for her breast enlargement. Why is that? Because Cindy Hess, better known as Chesty Love, was a pole dancer. And she justified that by having to keep up with the younger girls and make sure that her income came in. And she was able to take the deduction. So I don't see why anybody should be afraid to take the deductions that are due to them. There are a lot of CPAs out there that are fearful of having to deal with an audit. And I've had clients to say, oh, I've had about another $1,700 worth of deductions, but my CPA said, put it aside just in case we get audited. And I'm just appalled at that. So yes, learning what you can deduct, ordinary and necessary, common, helpful, acceptable, and appropriate. If it's appropriate for your business, when you travel, make sure that, for example, if you go to Florida for Orlando, make sure you do a seminar there. You've taken your family, but you do a seminar there and boom, the trip is tax deductible. Learn the skill of making sure that every time you breathe is tax deductible.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because I've talked to so many people. And of course, I don't give tax advice. I'm not a CPA or a tax professional, but just in my own experiences over the last 30 years running my own company, what I've learned is that pretty much 95% of everything that I do, I tell people, I write off and simply because, my business is allowing me to write off almost everything because almost everything I do has to do with my business.
Right.
If I'm out there and I, sit down with have a coffee at Starbucks and I'm having a conversation with somebody, that was a prospecting appointment that I just had. I just talked to somebody. I had to have the coffee to be in the coffee shop. So that was necessary. And then I ended up prospecting somebody and now that becomes a write-off situation. So everything that I'm doing, if I have dinner with somebody, of course I'm talking about my business. Of course I'm trying to get them to do business with me. I mean, the truth is, you have to have Zoom right now because we're having a conversation. By the way, I am one of your prospects. There's the possibility that you might do business with me and I might do business with you. There's always that prospect. And so, and again, I think what you're saying is so, I mean, I'm getting the chills right now because I'm loving what you're saying. And I love your passion. I love your tenacity. And because I'm like you, I'm a little bit angry. I'm a little bit upset that, we work so hard for our money and then you just write a check, man. And they take so much. And I love how you say life force, but they take so much from us. It's not even, what do they say? You're working. Most people are working till like August, like July or something like that.
August, yes.
For the government. I mean, so to me, that sounds like slavery to me because you're a slave for 6 months a year. That's a joke. That is an absolute joke that you're just handing over your money. And you know what's wild? Nobody cares. So not nobody, but most people, they just do it. They just do it because somebody told them to do it. Right. And so somebody like you, thank God there are people like you because you are making sure that we are becoming aware. Even me right now, you're making me think of some things. I'm like, all right, I need to take care of this. I need to talk about this. I need to make sure I handled this. I forgot about that, and then so people like you are so vitally important. It's unbelievable. Okay. So tell me, what are some of the other little things that like some of the biggest mistakes that people are making right now in their own personal tax situations, whether it be that small business owner or just somebody that's that W-2 employee?
Being lazy and not keeping up with the receipts. Just lazy. Like, you have a mileage or you have your gas receipt, it's summertime and you're driving and your gas receipt blows out the window. Not being strategically minded enough to say, I have to go to the grocery store or I have to go to the department store. What can I buy at that store that will make this trip a business trip? I have to go to Florida. It's a family reunion. How do I write this up as a business trip? And on the line of trips, this is another one. You're keeping your receipts from your restaurant when you're talking to people. I have created a tip sheet because people don't think about it. They'll get in the Uber because I don't drive to the airport anymore and leave my car out in the sun. My baby wants to be in the garage, right? So I get an Uber. I tip the person. Mm-hmm. I don't put the tip on because I don't know what they do with that money. I'll tip them in cash. I'll tip the bag handlers at the airport in cash. Then when I go wherever I'm going, so all of that goes on a sheet and it's all deductible. So at the end of a trip, I may have paid out $50 in tips. And people just do it and they lose that $50 deduction. So I made a tip sheet. Those things, it's being strategic about, if you're serious about wanting to keep everything that you earn, then you're going to find creative ways to make sure that you do that.
Okay. So that's for the kind of the average individual right now. So what are some of the because a lot of people will say things like, well, the wealthy, they luck out, or what's that scenario that they said? Well, Warren Buffett pays less than his secretary. People like tried to criticize him for doing that, or even Donald Trump, right? I mean, they said Donald Trump, it was when he did the debate with him and Hillary.
Yes.
And Hillary said, oh, well, you're all your rich friends and, you don't pay any money in taxes. And then he's like, well, I'm just doing what's legal and I'm just doing what all your rich friends, so explain to us why the wealthy people are not like these evil people because they pay less in taxes.
So first of all, Hillary is a hypocrite because she's the same way. She's doing the same thing. What he said after that, I don't have TV. But people called me that next day and said, oh, Donald Trump didn't pay his taxes. And they sucked all the air out of the room. It's like, okay, I went online to look at that portion of it. And he said, I'm a smart man. Well, he is a smart man. He knows that the tax code is written for businesses. So you have to either pay people like he does, or you have to dig in there yourself and figure that out. So some of the things that I teach my people that are making six figures plus is to make sure that if they have children, they hire their children. You can write off $15,000 per child every year, and that's going to depend on what the standard deduction is. But for 25, you got three children that are working for you between the ages of like 8 and 18. That's a $45,000 deduction that you can take. That's teaching them how to be entrepreneurs. That's teaching them how to manage money, and teaching them that they don't have to work for money. They can have money working for them, and teaching them how to take over the family business at some point. Another level to that is if you pay them, they can do whatever with the money. They can lend it back to you, or they can go and buy equipment for the company and bring in lease income for themselves. So the wealthy just have all of these. And of course, the ones that have corporations, they have the Augusta rule. I'm pretty sure you know about that, where, for 14 days out of the year, you can rent out your personal home to your corporation. And depending on the rental rates in that area, you can get a pretty penny. For example, the Masters tournament in Augusta, they have mansions around that golf course. And those people wanted to rent their their homes out to golf clubs from all over the country, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, all of that. They wanted to rent them out, but they didn't want to pay. So they went to their friends in Congress and said, how can we, for 2 weeks, rent this out and not have to pay any tax on that revenue that comes in? They created the Augusta rule for them. And I looked up the values of some of those houses and the rent. They can collect $14,000 a night having a whole golf team in there. So even if it's $10K, that's $140,000 of non-taxable income that they get because Congress, their friends in Congress, went to the IRS and had them put in the Augusta rule. There's other tax credits out there for the wealthy. There was one out there that I think Charles Barkley took advantage of back in the day, where if you had 40 cattle on some land, then you had this huge tax deduction. So that saying, the rich get richer and the poor and middle class continue to suffer, it's because you're not educating yourself. I can't spend a whole bunch of money on some land and put cattle on it, but I can rent out my house to my corporation if I want to for 14 days out of the year and, have that tax deduction. So I hired my children when they were younger. They're adults now, but I hired them. I knew about this back in the 90s, and I hired them and they made money and I got the deduction. So there are others out there, but just the key is making sure that you understand them. If you can do what the wealthy do, you can have what they have. So go out and figure it out and turn off that electronic income reducer, because, until Tom Brady or whoever the heck is playing football these days, until they start stroking me a check, my team is the Jackson team.
I'm just telling you, I love you, Sherry. All right. You are badass. Okay. I mean, you are speaking my language, man. I mean, because I've been telling people for years, man, turn off the TV. I love it. It's an electronic income reducer. What is an electronic income reducer anyways?
And electronic intellect reducer. When you sit there and look at somebody else, you're making them rich. Your intellect is going down and your income is not there, because you could be going online somewhere to YouTube University and trying to figure out how to start your own business, or getting with consultants like myself and say, what business do you want? I had one lady that said she wanted to do quilts. And I said, baby, that's nice, but you keep that a hobby, because Walmart and Target sell quilts. So their minds are being controlled by the tell a vision.
I love it. I mean, I love what you're saying, because look, I also think that one of the biggest lessons that hopefully people are deciphering from this conversation is the fact that you have to have your own business. Yes. Some way, somehow you need, and I'll just, I'm a little biased in what I do, because I recruit and I train. My business is, and I love my business the way it's set up, because it is a team building concept, which means that I recruit unlimited amounts of people. Okay. So our organization recruits hundreds and hundreds of people every single month. And so what that means is I have unlimited lunches that I can go to. I have unlimited coffees I'm going to. I have unlimited amounts of recognition, and I have unlimited amounts of things that I can buy as recognition pieces for our teammates and our teams, and events and books and tapes and everything that I'm able to do to create more business in my business.
Yes.
And, but I think this is where people mess it up. Like for example, I'll give you a perfect example where people just screw this up. I'm talking to this lady the other night. She's a school teacher making $130,000 a year, right? She just moves into a little, kind of condo house, right? And I'm having a conversation with her, and she's saying that she can't afford $119 a month for her life insurance. Sherry, I'm about to, my brain is about to explode because I'm thinking, how does somebody making $130,000, I don't even care if we're in California, even in California, $130,000 is a lot of money. Okay. Because the average couple, and she's a single lady by herself. The average couple, I think, makes like maybe 80 grand a year in California. So you got to be kidding me. $119 she couldn't afford. And I told her, I said, do you understand that you are literally giving all of your money away in taxes? Because she says, half of my money goes away in taxes. She says, oh, I don't really make $11,000 a month. I'm giving it all in taxes. I said, okay, so I have a solution for you. I said, join me in business. I'll pay for your license. Go take a test, right? You've taken many tests. Just take one more. Get licensed. Become an independent contractor, as I am. And from this point on, for the rest of your life, you have a side hustle. You could actually make money legitimately. You can make money with me, but you also have the ability to write off tens of thousands of dollars of things that you're already doing that you can't currently write off. Am I wrong, Sherry?
No, you're not wrong. And I've heard things like that before. And people say, well, I want to miss my favorite television show. Or you ask them to, get the extra money out of their W-2 by changing their W-4. It's like, well, I want my refund at the end of the year. And it's like, I can't do anything with this. I can't do anything with that person. I got to move on. So, yeah.
I love it.
But,
yeah.
The people in the United States are, with the advertising and all that, they're spending billions of dollars on conspicuous consumption. Why would you pay, if you can't afford it, $150 for a pair of tennis shoes that cost $5 made in China? Or why would you buy a Louis Vuitton purse for $500 and you don't have $5 to put in it? This is where people are. They are trying to perpetrate the prima donna, and they don't have anything. People buying houses with no furniture. We have gotten caught up in whatever this is. It's a mental thing. And those that break out are the ones that are going to make it.
You're something else, Sherry. You got it down. Okay, so tell us a little bit about what you do. Like exactly how do you help people in what capacity? Are you a CPA now? Or are you just an IRS? You do consulting, and explain to us exactly what you do.
Okay, so I'm not a CPA anymore. I gave that license up. I am a consultant. I help people keep, protect, and grow what they earn. The people that I work with are employees that are making, middle to high six figures at a job that say, oh, I'm scared to death of a pink slip. I need to now get some business started so that if the pink slip does come, then I have something to continue on with my income. So if the pink slip does come, then I can either have this business going while I look for another job, or just crank the business up to where I don't have to go look for a job. And then I work with small business owners, maybe, 750 below. And they don't know what to do. They don't know the tax law. They don't understand. I have to explain to them. I have to show them the deductions that they can take, because whoever's been doing their books before didn't take the deductions. I had one kind of medium-sized construction company that had an NOL a couple of years back. One of the first things that I do is I ask for your last 3 years tax returns. And I noticed that they had a net operating loss. And I asked them, did your big CPA firm that you were paying like tens of thousands of dollars a year, did they go back and take your NOL and carry it back? They didn't. So I said, you need to go back to these people to have your tax returns done, because you're losing out on $14,000. So just basically having a strategic look at their whole financial position and making sure that, first of all, what they have right now, they haven't been robbed. Second of all, going ahead and making sure that they start and grow a successful home-based business.
And so, what are some of the, I mean, are there businesses that you can just start up? I mean, is that kind of your, do you have any, is there a certain type of business that does better than others, or that there's more possibility for write-offs versus others?
Not necessarily for write-offs, but it depends on the client. If I got a client that's a doctor and he just doesn't have a lot of time afterwards, we go towards real estate. What can you do with passive income? Then I have other people that they have a lot of time on their hands after their job and they act like they don't. And I said, what are you doing when you get off your job? And they, think about it. Starting a YouTube channel. What is more successful for the clients that I have is to create something one time and sell it thousands and thousands of times. A book, for example, I've written 10 books. They sell overnight. So, I'm looking in the morning, I'll have to, get the orders out. And so YouTube channel, if you have the content, people will pay you there's 8 ways to make money on YouTube. Besides the fact that you get sponsors, besides the fact that YouTube pays you, you can start consulting. One of my clients, I told her, you're really good at what you do. I've watched your channel. You're kind of shy because you don't have credentials. Well, there was a way that you can go get a coaching certificate. So you can add that. It was only $5,000. Go through this 12-week class. And so you can call yourself a certified coach and make money on YouTube. So you're on YouTube. People are giving you the super chats. YouTube is paying you. And then also people are, direct messaging you saying, hey, can I have some private consultation? So that's kind of one of the simplest ways. I have so many people that have a lot of things that they went through in their lives. I tell them to write books. There have been people that have written books. There are people that are in the process of writing books. And people do read a lot, but it's not just about selling your book. It's about when you have a book, you're looked at as an expert. So then that gets you in the door to speaking engagements and other areas where you can offer packages and help people. I love public speaking. I hate that, COVID was, it was a killer for me. It was a thief. COVID was a thief.
Right.
And I, had to cancel 6 flights.
Right.
That I had lined up, and I would love to get back to public speaking. It's not really gotten to the point where I feel like it's there because people are saying, oh, well, why don't you come? Why don't you come to Dallas? Why don't you come to wherever? It's like, no, you come to Atlanta and then I'll, do a live event. But there are so many different ways out there. If you just stop being lazy, stop wasting time, stop making excuses. Don't tell me about your circumstances. What circumstances? Circum is a circle, and you're standing in a self-imposed circle, looking out at what other people are doing, making excuses why you can't get outside the circle. So you can tell, Daniel, I don't have time for foolishness. I'm 62 years old. I do not have time to be dealing with anybody that's not serious about moving their life forward.
I'm so glad you talked about books. All right. So this is my book called Wealth on the Beach. So if anybody needs to get that, make sure you let us know in the comments. We'll send you exactly where you can go get that right away. But I just, I everything you're saying is right on. I mean, I write books. I have a YouTube channel. I have a business that's in direct marketing. So we have, over 1,500 licensed agents, 60 locations with a New York Stock Exchange company. And so we, I get it. And this is, and honestly, Sherry, I'm so excited talking to you because I've been having this conversation for so long. I do have a question though. When you, what advice would you give some of these people though that say, you know what? It's unconstitutional. Taxes are unconstitutional. I don't want to pay taxes. What do you tell these people?
Well, with my story, I tried to cut the head off the beast and that didn't work out so well. But instead of trying to cut the head off the beast now, I help people to starve the beast. And what that means is you have to have a business. It's better if it's a home-based business because you don't have an extra rent or mortgage to pay. But you have to have a business and you have to learn how to operate that business. You have to treat it like a job. In other words, you can't just get up at noon and work it for a couple of hours. You have to put the time into it to get it rolling and then go forth with creating multiple streams of income from that business or figuring out ways to create multiple streams of income. What is it that you like? What is your passion? My passion right now is I have a home in Costa Rica. Wealth on the beach is what I want, so I'm getting that development together. There are 2 properties that are being developed. besides the home that I bought because I was spending so much time down there. And that's where I'm going towards. But it's a mindset change that is needed. If you can't see that somebody's ready to change their mindset, then you need to move on, because the people that are out there that don't know and want to know, they're game. They're going to listen to you. So I admonish you for what you're doing. And I also love the fact that you talk about multiple streams of income. You have multiple streams of income. And that's what people need. They don't just, when you're in battle, which we are, you can't stand with your 2 feet next to each other. You're going to topple over, or somebody's going to push you over. You need to be strategically moving these feet all the time. My dad taught me how to play chess when I was younger. And although I don't play now, I understand the game of chess. Why did they make that move, and how does it affect me? People don't think like that anymore. We need to bring back critical thinking.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well said. And so when you think about, because you were like a whistleblower, right? I mean, what happened there? I mean, what did you, when I see whistleblower, what did you do? What did you blow the whistle on?
Well, I'm very animated and I'm very factual about my speech. And I was telling people that the income tax is a fraud. Me and others were out there saying, hey, we're not telling you what to do, but you need to do your own research and discover, what's being taken from you. Aaron Russo, which is a guy that was a movie producer out of Hollywood. He made Trading Places with Eddie Murphy and The Rose with Bette Midler. He decided that he was going to do a documentary, and it's called America, Freedom to Fascism. It's still out there on YouTube. And as soon as, we were exposed as more than low-flying gnats on the government radar screen, they started to prosecute us. So I spent 3 years in prison on a 4-year misdemeanor sentence because I decided that I was going to keep what I earned. Homeschooling mother, just keeping what I earned. But I was too visible. I was all over the place. And it's like, we can't let this woman continue to make people think. So they came in my house. They raided my house. They were there from 7:45 in the morning to 5:00, took about 32 boxes in 2004. And then I continued to speak. It's like truth is truth for everybody, or it's not truth at all. And then they came up with some misdemeanor charge of willful failure to file. They were looking for a felony. But like I said, we were homeschooling family, just trying to keep what we earn. And they basically had a jury that was afraid of the IRS to come in and say, okay, taxes are legal. And the judge would not let me go through the laws that say, the things about being unconstitutional and how what President Trump is saying right now. Way back then, we had tariffs and we were getting money from other countries for the privilege of working over here or for the privilege of having business over here. She wouldn't let me speak. And so at sentencing, she said to me, and I'm going to use her voice, Daniel, I know you homeschool your children, Miss Jackson, and I know you got a lot of family support, but you can't run around the country telling people not to file income tax return. And I looked at her dead in the face and said, I never did that because I never told anybody. But that let me know that it was me being vocal about it, because she said nothing about me keeping what I earned. She said they didn't want me out there doing that. And you know what? I came back and I wrote a book called How to Stick It to the IRS. And my mentor said, you got the balls after all you've been through to write a book called How to Stick It to the IRS. I said, they stuck it to me. I'm sticking it to them. So that's my flagship book. It sells more than any of my other books.
And so, so the behind the scenes of that, you went to jail. What was that like? Was that pretty disruptive for your family? How old were your kids at that time?
They were like 16 and 18, so thank God they weren't little.
Were they like, Mom, what is going on, Mom? Were they?
They were with me in Washington on marches and stuff. They knew. I set them down and I said, I don't know what the government is going to do, but this is what I'm supposed to do. This is almost like, during the civil rights movement, you know what you've been called to do. And I was called to do that. And whatever the consequences were, I did lose my marriage from that situation and, lost my business and had to start over. It's almost like I hit rock bottom and started to dig. But Daniel, it didn't take long. I got back to 6 figures. So because of strategic thinking, and I don't want anybody to go through what I went through at all. So for those who, don't want to rock the boat, we can just starve the insidious representatives of Satan by getting a home-based business and legally writing off everything but the kitchen sink.
I think it's a major tragedy what that judge said to you. She said, we don't want you telling people things. I mean, that is like totally against the First Amendment. I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't about that because the truth is you could tell anybody you want. You could tell anybody, whatever you want to tell them. That's the whole purpose of America. America allows us to say what we want to say. So that's the sad part, is that the government has gone way too far now. I think that's, so how important is it that we vote correctly in America?
It's, with this situation, it's not about it. The First Amendment was out the door a long time ago. And me being able to say this, like I said, I never told people what to do. I was a dangerous person to them. The tax issue is a racially unifying issue. Everybody hates taxes. They put me on the Department of Homeland Security's homegrown terrorist list because I was like, we can't have this lady with 9 letters behind her name going out there teaching people this. We just can't. We got to shut her down, and, maybe people will go away. Well, I have had soldiers in Kuwait calling me. I've had so many people. One of the A-list actors out there with you paid my mortgage one of those years. People know this is wrong. They know it's wrong. And yes, I paid a heavy price for it, but it's still wrong. And I'm praying that, President Trump gets somewhere with his dismantling of the IRS. He's talking about the External Revenue Service, which will be getting the tariffs from the other countries. But, and he mentioned putting the IRS agents on the border. I was saying that a long time ago. It's like, we need to protect our border, put them down there. But no, it's everything happens for a reason. And when I was there, my dad, which is, he's 81, he's still alive. He said, treat this like a university. Study what Nelson Mandela did. How did he come out of prison not bitter and angry? Because I taught it, I acted like it was a university. I made sure that I was still learning, and I went in there with the mindset of, you will not break me. And they didn't. And so the worst that happened is I lost a tooth, because, that if you want to see socialized medicine, you go to a prison. How long you have to wait to get things done. I lost the tooth because, they just didn't, that's how that was. But no, I was well respected by most of the staff and by the young ladies. I was the older one in there, because when I went in, I was already 40, 45. Right. And most of those girls in there, young girls, drug running mules and all that stuff like that. It was an experience, and everything, like I said, happens for a reason. But now, with what we have going on right now, we need to wake up, have your head on a swivel, and pay attention, because we have gotten in so many countries' business over the years, and we have all this blowback going on. You have to make sure that you and your family and your neighbors and whoever else you care about are able to take care of themselves through all of what's going on. And that's what I concentrate on with my clients.
Tell me the name of your book that you wrote when you came out. What was that called again?
How to Stick It to the IRS: Confessions from a Former Insider. That's one of the books. There's several of them, but
because I'm going to go get it now. I mean, can I get it on Amazon? Is it on Amazon?
No, I took it off Amazon. Amazon charges too much. I have it on my website, sherrypeeljackson.com.
Okay. All right. So that's where I'm getting it today. I am going to go buy that book. I hope everybody that is watching this buys that book today, because you're going to teach us in the book, right, how to save money in taxes too, right? I mean, you're going to give us all the insider information, but I'm fascinated with your story because, let's be honest, man. I mean, to go through what you went through for a purpose, for, taking a stand against something that is fundamentally wrong. And I think all of us, we know that it's fundamentally wrong, because every time we pay our taxes, I mean, isn't it sad that we're all excited that we're getting a tax return? It's like, well, wait a minute. That's your money. You're just getting money. You're just getting your own money back. And by the way, this is why I like being 1099, because I pay my taxes after all my expenses versus, most, sheep, or most, employees, they're paying their taxes right out of their check. Yes. And they don't understand how to play with their deductions and things like that. So I want to make sure that I don't pay anything. Like if I was W-2, I wouldn't want to pay anything all year long. And then I'll pay you at the end if I have to, but I don't want to pay you anything all along, because the IRS is basically, I mean, I'm a financial analyst. So, I mean, they're basically I'm just loaning them my money,
yes,
interest free
yes,
for an entire year. I mean, that has got to be one of the dumbest things that you can do financially. I mean, you're better off taking the money, just putting it in the bank, at least earning interest. So even if you have to pay them that same amount back at the end of the year, at least you get to keep the interest, whether that be $100 or $200 or $500 or $1,000. It pays a bill. I mean, am I wrong?
No, you're not. And I don't know if you know this, but they changed the W-4, so you can't do that. A long time ago when I was working for the IRS, and probably for a long time after that, you could, you put your exemptions on there. And you could put 8 or 9 exemptions so that they won't be taking anything out. Now they pigeonhole you. If there are 2 people in your house, they want you to take 2 exemptions. And my son let me know that he's an analyst for Deloitte, and he said, "Mom, this what you said for me to do last year, it's not on there anymore." And so he sent it to me. It's like, no, they're not allowing him to take 4 exemptions. It's only 2, him and his wife. And so this is a sheeple corral. And what they're doing is they're gathering us in this corral, and they're going to close the gate. And as we continue to bow to this, what does it say? When a country has liberty, there's freedom. And then when there's no liberty, there's tyranny. This is crazy. Like I said, prayerfully things will change, now that the new administration is in. I don't know what would have happened had that person, the cackling lady. Oh my gosh. Ooh, yeah, I just couldn't. Yeah. But anyway, we'll see what happens. We'll see. But at least we have a fighting chance now to make sure that we get more people on board with understanding how much of their money is gone to the government and how they can get that back.
Yeah, the reason why I was talking about, voting right is because I just really think that at some point there are people, and I've said this for years. I mean, we need to vote people in that are business owners.
Right.
We need to vote people in that understand money. Right. Isn't it crazy that we're $36 trillion in debt, but yet we pay the most taxes of most countries?
Right.
And we are 36 trillion. Our country is going to go bankrupt.
Right.
Our dollar is losing value. We are at the brink of, and then people are mad that Elon Musk wants to, get rid of all these crazy expenses. What was that? USAID or something like that. They're getting rid of that. He just got rid of it.
Yes.
And people are in outrage. But like I was telling somebody, I said, just look at the people that are outraged. Those are the people that are a part of the corruption. Exactly. It's very simple to see. I mean, they're all showing their cards. I mean, literally, they're just like, look at me. I've been corrupting the system all these years because I'm mad that this guy wants to come in and get rid of all the crap. Like everybody, 99% of America is like, this is a no-brainer. This is common sense. Of course, you go into these agencies, you get rid of them because the agencies are corrupt. And all we got to do is look at the information. I mean, Biden, we know that he took $50 million from China. We know that. I mean, the numbers are the numbers. The numbers are there. We've already seen the bank statements. We've already audited those accounts. That's why he ended up, what is that? He let everybody go free, pardoned.
Preemptive pardon. How about that?
Preemptive pardon. 8,000. Nobody's ever pardoned that many people before. Over 8,500 people got pardoned.
This is Banana Republic corruption right here.
It's crazy.
It is.
It's ugly, and nobody cares.
Right.
And still 70 something million people voted for that lady, that cackling lady. And then you go, how? These are not the people that we want running the government. We want the people that ran businesses that are like people like you that are educated, that know your side. Are you ever going to run for office, or you ever going to do that? I mean,
no, because I think that changing the players without changing the game is an act in futility for me. But I do. And by the way, I've written a letter and I haven't sent it out yet, but I'm asking, since they've done all this preemptive stuff, I'm asking President Trump to expunge this record of mine, asking him
Beautiful.
that
Beautiful.
because,
Well, if you need a petition or if you need a
okay,
signature, I'll sign it, man.
okay,
So
because that Hunter Biden, he did a million times more than what I did. And it's like, you know, if you want people to have trust in the country and in the government, you can't do stuff like that. You
absolutely.
can't. You give me a 4-year sentence on a misdemeanor, but you let him go. So that's sticking in my crawl, and I'm gonna do some things to make sure that I take that negative energy away and make it positive energy. That's what I like to do. So part of it will be petition, and I will definitely keep you abreast of it.
Mhm.
And part of it will be some other things that I have in mind to do.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, okay. So as we're kind of closing it up here, this has been I mean, I could do this for another 3 hours. I want to know how we get a hold of you, how we contact you. I want to know your Instagram. I want to know your YouTube. I want to know your books. I want to know your website. Give it to us.
Okay, so my website is sherrypeeljackson.com, and you spell my maiden name peel, like orange peel, potato peel. That's what they used to call me in elementary school. You know, children are cruel. So sherrypeeljackson.com. My YouTube is Sherry Peel Jackson. Instagram is Sherry Peel Jackson. My X is SPeelJ. And I think that Thrive with Sherry is how you get to the YouTube and I just got a TikTok. I'm not good at this stuff because I don't have a team. So I try to do as much as I can. And so that's how you get in touch with me. Connect at sherrypeeljackson.com is the email. And
Well,
I'm out there on YouTube. I do have live sometime, but my focus more so is my Costa Rica project. That's my magnum opus. And I'm hoping that I can get all the permitting done. They're very slow in the Caribbean, and that's an understatement. But I'm praying that, by the end of the year, I can at least break ground on one of the properties and start a whole community of people that are like-minded, that know that we need a plan B.
beautiful, beautiful. Well, I'd follow you to the end of the earth. Sherry, you are one of the smartest, most bravest, toughest badasses that I've ever met. And so God bless you for everything that you're doing, everything that you've gone through. It's disruptors like you that make the world better. It's people like you that make the world better. And thank you. I mean, really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for what you do. And there's no question we're going to definitely be in touch. So with that said, everybody continue to dream bigger than ever. Get after it. But most importantly, do it now. God bless you.
Thank you.
We'll see you at the top.